What's up, everyone? Be sure to lock down that thumbs up button like you just got matched on a blind date with Android 18. And if you find Master Roshi Stone in today's video, the first person to timestamp it in the comments will get a shout out in the next. Standing by watching as men give it everything they've got, Turles can't help but wonder what in the world they think they're doing going so hard against merely a child. The heck was that thing?
I'm not giving you time to rest, kid!
What? Amon cackles, having surrounded Mato by his explosive attack. But his commander sees right through the smoke and mirrors, calling his underling an idiot.
Huh?
On one hand, Turles is annoyed that his lessers are acting like this is a real battle. On the other, he's furious they're getting so easily manhandled by the boy. The muscle in his arm begins to contract, making a heartbeat-like thud. Could this simply be due to his frustration, or is it possibly a side effect from the fruit of the Tree of Might? Making progress, Base soon increases his ability to control his own ki, levitating and manipulating several balls of energy to circle him. Proud of his accomplishments, Legic feels the last 3 months since his training began have been a pretty good success, wondering how Mato is coming along. Who continues to plow through the Crusher Core, though Dies remains committed in proving his superiority, as a blast nearly maims him from behind. None other than Turles himself, the Source. Shocked at his commander's aggression, he appears more uneasy now than ever. The Saiyan snarls, that's enough. Nothing further will be achieved from the lot of them ganging up and continuing to make fools of themselves. He wants to test Mato's strength himself. But before, he tosses a set of clothes to the ground, telling him to switch into that instead. Also handing over some armor. Mato knows this design well, objecting only those who follow Frieza wear this. Turles insists he not be fixated on such things. It's merely the superior combat gear compared to what he currently has on. Its durability, maneuverability, and protection can't be matched. Not to mention it's much easier to keep clean than fabric. And mostly, it's the least he can do for a fellow Saiyan. Speaking of which, he feels it's time to remind the young warrior that's precisely what he is. Sending an artificial moon hurtling into the sky. Mato quickly tries to compose himself to figure out exactly what he's planning, as his opposite shouts burst open and mix. Once again frozen in place with his eyes locked on the blood-wave-emitting body, his heart thumps heavily. Destroying it, Turles explains had he looked at it as well, he too would have transformed, but the effects should linger long enough to get a good idea of what Uzaro Mato can do. Rather, not Uzaro Mato, but the true Mato. Even multiplying his power tenfold, Legic's words come full circle. Pure strength alone isn't enough to win battles. A short time would pass, as the Crusher Core calmly fills up on whatever food they have. They can't help but be distracted by the pair of Saiyans doing what they do. Mid-chew, Turles points out a scene Mato is mostly able to retain his senses while transformed. As if he was trying to hide this fact, the young warrior appears shocked his elder is able to tell. Going on, it was also evident somewhere deep down, Mato was holding back for some reason. This prompts him to remind that a Saiyan's battle instinct is not to hesitate. At best, their previous fight was nothing more than horseplay. Changing the subject, likely because he knows his mentor is correct, he asks if there are any other Saiyans on this planet or elsewhere in the universe. Clearly not having thought about the remains of his race in quite some time, he has to really think back, but has complete confidence the only others out there are the few still under Frieza's rule. This means Prince Vegeta and Nappa, who was assigned to look after the King's son prior to the destruction of their home. Then there's another young one named Raditz, though he's only a low-level fighter not expected to amount to much. But according to various rumors, the prince has a surviving brother somewhere in the universe who never reported back to base. Then the one called Paragus and his son, who were thought to have been exiled, but there has been too much chatter to ignore they likely found a way to survive. There was also an infant pod reported to be heading somewhere through the North Galaxies, just as planet Vegeta was destroyed, likely a world called Earth, as it would be much easier to blend in with the natives there versus Namek or Arlia. In other words, only a handful. Mato is quite deflated at this discovery. He really didn't think the two of them were pretty much the last of their people. Standing, Turles comments the boy not get too down. There could easily be a slew of hybrids around just like Mato, instilling a bit of hope in him. But with a smirk, he gets back to the reason why Mato came here in the first place, asking if he still wants to get revenge on Frieza's army to avenge his mother. Though he only pitches this question to tell his protege something else. It is said the Saiyan's homeworld was destroyed by a wayward meteor, a 1 in a billion chance, and it was simply fate their people would meet their end. But the truth is, it was destroyed by Frieza himself. This reveal puts the young man in a state of silence, likely absorbing the magnitude of the tyrant's strength to be able to pull off such a feat. Frieza's fear of the Saiyan's potential grew into a vile, furious hatred. One day, he decided it would be best to let his paranoia get the better of him and take out the entire race in a single attack. He gathered them all back to planet Vegeta. Maybe a day later, when the time was right, he wiped them from existence. Turles himself only managed to survive thanks to Legic, but that's a story for another day. Clenching his fist, Mato realizes what this means. Not only his mother, but also his father fell due to the malevolence of Frieza, in one way or another. His intention not being to discourage or aggravate a student, but to motivate and inform him. Now he knows just how strong his opponent is. If he wanted to, Frieza has the ability to literally erase the ground beneath them. As things currently stand, if Mato were to face him today, Frieza would effortlessly win with a hand tied behind his back. Never before had the young warrior thought his foe could be not only so heartless, but so powerful. The rest of the 6 months would come and go. Now sparring in his base form, it appears our hero still has some work to do if he wants to rival Turles, who is even generous enough to let Mato regain his composure after being stunned by that last punch. He taunts, asking if that's all he's got, only adding to his frustration. Whether letting his guard down or genuinely overtaken, Turles merely grows excited at Mato's progression, hoping now he may be a little entertaining, and proud to see the blood of a Saiyan flows within him after all, and it's surely not going to waste. Though noticing where he has landed, he detracts, gazing over to see the opening of a certain tree. Swiftly dashing inside, Mato wonders what he's up to, but we have an idea exactly what that may be. Finding the fruit, he quickly reaches out to pick a ripe one, when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Confused, he turns to see what's going on. And it's Legic, who appears to be a bit angry in the Saiyan's decision to try to snack up on a quick power-up. Alas, he informs that's enough, and their fight is over. Mato is just stunned to see him, but for the most part remains silent. As the promised 6 months has passed, it doesn't seem Legic wants this training to continue a second longer. But for what reason? Ushering the young Saiyan back to the ship, Base can only initially gawk at his friend. Of course, wearing that armor definitely gives off a strange vibe, but that's not what seems so off. His demeanor, his sheer presence feels as if it's gone through a transformation. Without having to communicate this between each other, Legic senses the same. Unable to hold back from grinning, he states he can already see the determination in Mato's eyes. He has truly tuned into his Saiyan heritage. Though he does nothing to add to this conversation, simply reaching into his suit to look at the parting gift he received. Right before they took off, Turles called out to stop them from leaving just yet. Though not merely to see him off, but to offer a proposal, asking if he'd like to join he and his crew. Together, they would roam through the universe, destroy whatever or whoever they desire, not to mention all the camaraderie that comes along with it. Money, food, drink, women, whatever they desire. But Mato doesn't even consider this, bluntly stating there is no way that's going to happen. His goal hasn't changed. vowing to defeat Frieza and avenge his parents. And if Turles plans to do to others what Frieza did to Planet Vegeta, attacking innocent people and destroying civilizations, he'll beat him to a pulp right here and now. Instead of getting angry, Turles finds himself impressed by his other's attitude, even going as far to say, that's how a Saiyan should be. As the trio turns to leave, he calls out to Mato one last time, tossing him the fruit from before. Not informing what it will do, he bids his student farewell. In the present, he figures now is as good as ever to get in a quick snack. But upon receiving the power-up, it's clear Turles wanted to send him off with one final boost, from one Saiyan to another. As the ship disappears through the clouds, he doesn't move an inch. Though finally letting his pride take over, he has to scoff at Mato's notion of beating him to a pulp, claiming that youngster was always a funny one. Already having stayed on this world much longer than expected, he calls out to his men. Since there is nothing left to do or obtain from this planet, it's time to move on to the next. Without too many other places nearby, maybe they should pay that Earth planet a visit to see if that's truly where that pod was headed off to. Proving to have vastly improved with his training, Mato still doesn't appear to have surpassed Legic, though his mentor notes it's clear he's gotten much better at controlling his ki, and while that may be the case, he struggles in releasing it. If he doesn't correct this, he won't so much be useful in killing houseflies, let alone Frieza. Base runs over to contradict this, and possibly heal him, claiming he's in fact amazing, as he has managed to learn everything about ki he himself did, but he's able to catch on in only moments rather than months. Not to mention his raw strength has improved greatly. Keeping his focus and not allowing himself to give up, he tells Legic he wants to go one more time, seeming to surprise him. Instead, he suggests they take a break. At least the two of them should eat something. The Namekian may be able to go without food, but they surely can't. As time passes, Legic asks Mato what his plan is after defeating Frieza. Zoning out for a moment, that's not something he's put a lot of thought into, stating he doesn't really know. Probably just go home and tell his mother. Maybe not exactly the answer he is looking for, the elder simply responds, I see. Before commenting, the boy should hold on to his dream. Right now, his only focus is revenge, and if he harnesses that passion, he will become stronger. He is still only a kid, but depending how he trains, he could surpass Legic one day. He shouldn't consider Frieza his final target. He needs to look further into the future. Stepping back, Mato asks Legic if he has a dream, who only chuckles at the question. At this point in his life, he has lived much longer than either Base or Mato. Long enough to let one dream go only to chase another. All that's left now is for him to wait for death. But maybe he has one hope remaining which could be considered a dream of some kind, but he'll need Mato to be the one to grant it for him. They're 6 months of training complete, though still light years behind their ultimate goal. What further training can the boys undergo to become stronger? And what is this dream Legic has in mind for Mato?